Good morning, friends. I hope you're all doing well. I am really looking forward to today because it's my plan to have a little wander in Old Town because I've not been for a good while and I thought it might be quite nice. It's January, so hopefully it won't be too busy, and I'll maybe revisit some of my favourite closes, and I've got my camera packed to take some photos. And the other thing I want to do is finally tick something off of my Edinburgh bucket list. Gladston Land has been somewhere that I've been wanting to visit for years, and for some reason I've just never managed to make it there. If you've not heard of it, it's one of the Royal Mile's oldest buildings, and I believe it's run by the National Trust for Scotland, and it looks very interesting. It's a sort of immersive experience showing, I think, 3 centuries of history on the Royal Mile, like what it would have been like to live in a close on the Royal Mile. So I've heard people talk about it, I've seen photos, and I'm always very intrigued because I've been to their other sort of attraction, I guess, or museum, which is the Georgian House in Newtown, and I really enjoyed that. So I think Gladston Land will be really interesting. So I've booked in at 3 o'clock for a tour, and I think that would just be really nice because I always enjoy whenever I go to a museum or an art gallery, if there is a sort of a tour going around and someone sharing about it. I just seem to absorb that information a lot better. So I think that will be really fun. So if you would like to join me, it'd be lovely to have you. I better get myself going. Welcome to Edinburgh's Old Town. I'm just currently in the little physic garden that is next to Holyrood Palace, so right at the foot of the Royal Mile, and I thought it might be nice to start off in Canongate and then head up the Royal Mile all the way to the top and finish, depending on time, either at Edinburgh Castle or at Gladston Land. Also, if you're looking for a little spot to sit in outside on a nice day, preferably probably spring or summer, this is a really nice little garden that opened fairly recently, maybe a year or 2, maybe even longer than that, but a couple of years ago. But it's just such a lovely little space, and it's free to enter. We're going to be visiting some of my favourite closes on the Royal Mile on our little tour today, and we've just arrived at the first one, White Horse Close. It's so picturesque. I'm just sitting on a bench in Dunbar Close Gardens. It's one of my favourite little peaceful spots in the city. It's just so pretty, and it's laid out like a 17th century townhouse, which, so in case you're not so familiar with the Royal Mile, originally Canongate was the more affluent area with sort of bigger houses and gardens like this, apparently, because it's near the palace, the royal residence. And then up, further up near the castle is a lot more close, that's funny, a lot more squeezed together, really tall, sort of original sort of high rises, and a lot more cramped conditions. So yeah, I'm so glad. I believe it's the Mushroom Trust that bought this space or acquired it and have restored it to create this beautiful, peaceful space, which also is a little slice of history. I've just nipped down Bakehouse Close, which if you're an Outlander fan, you might recognise because they filmed some of potentially season 3 here, 3 or 4, I can't remember. But just out here is where Jamie's print works, you know, where he works at the print works, was filmed. And I actually remember it. I actually passed when they were filming. I didn't see anyone, but yeah, that was fun. Before we cross over from Canongate into what was originally just Edinburgh, I have one more thing to show you, and it's actually it's a very special place to me because not only do I think it's so picturesque, it also has a really interesting history concerning Deacon Brodie, who was sort of the inspiration of Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, but it's also where I took my cover photo for my book that I published way back in 2019. So whenever I come here, it just has such lovely memories and yeah, associations attached to it. Anyway, let's have a little walk around and have a look. I've not been on the Royal Mile for a little while. If I have, I've sort of been cutting through on a mission to go somewhere, and I've just spotted this. So I think this is Fountain Close. This is new to me. I didn't know that they'd lit it up in a rainbow of colours. I still have a little bit of time before the tour, so let's pop into Lady Stairs Close for a quick look. I've just signed in and waiting for our tour guide to arrive, but I had no idea that there's a whole back section to this cafe. I thought it was just outdoor seating or takeaway, so that's really good to know. I might even have a little hot chocolate or tea after the tour in here because it is actually really cold. I'm very glad to be in the warmth. This unassuming tenement has witnessed more than 500 years of Old Town history. It was bought by Thomas Gladstone, who gives the property its name, in the early 17th century. He extended the building to the front and added fashionable painted ceilings with the intention of attracting affluent commercial and residential tenants. Gladston Land is an immersive museum set over 3 floors. Each floor tells its own story, and we started out on the 3rd floor. Mary Wilson opened a boarding house in Gladston Land in 1911, advertising in the Scotsman for 2 or 3 respectable men to share one of the large front rooms. Boarding houses provided temporary accommodation for those without their own home, and they varied hugely in the amenities they offered and the class of the residents. This relatively comfortable but affordable room would have attracted working class men in steady jobs.
Now Gladstone was from day one what we would call a property developer, and his plan was to rent rooms out to wealthy individuals and make some money from it. So to that end, in 1620, he extended the house by building an extra room on the front on all 5 floors. The flowers we have roses, acanthus leaves and vine leaves.
Our wonderful tour guide George led us around the room and pointed out different objects of interest to us and told us the history, the stories, and just the reason they'd been included in the museum. It was really fun because most of our group was made up of Edinburgh residents in their 80s, so it was so fun to hear them swap stories with George and reminisce about what growing up in Edinburgh was like. And also, for example, there was one picture on the wall that I didn't recognise, and apparently that building has since been demolished, and they were just remembering when that building was there, so that was very special. We were then led downstairs to the 2nd floor, which is laid out like a draper's shop. In 1766, this draper's shop belonging to William Dawson and Elizabeth Pallans was where wealthy members of Edinburgh society would have bought fashionable fabric, ribbons and accessories. Shopping was rapidly becoming a leisure pursuit for the middle and upper class women, and the interior design and displays were all calculated to encourage a purchase. Old Town was still a prosperous social and commercial centre, but the creation of New Town was imminent, changing the way of life in the area.
Ash, so is it for
You're on the right.
keeping your cigar or your...
No, you're on the right lines. You see it scorch you. It's a mobile foot warmer.
Oh, yes.
Brass lining which will take hot coal. So in the winter, William would sit writing his accounts with his feet on this. And because it's got a wee handle, Elizabeth can take this to the kirk on a Sunday morning and help her survive the 3-hour Presbyterian service.
So far, we've been in the building's 17th century extension, but as we make our way down to the 1st floor, this is the first time that we'll get a chance to see the original building, which dates back to the 16th century. The early 17th century was the heyday of Gladstone's Land, and wealthy merchants John Riddoch and Margaret Noble lived and worked here in 1632. They ran a shop on the ground floor and a tavern in the basement. This is their apartment, with a large hall for living, sleeping and socialising, a kitchen and a stockroom. The expensive decoration and furniture demonstrated their wealth, and their stockroom is full of the luxury goods that they imported and sold.
Now this is obviously the kitchen. The maid's name is Isabel Johnston. That's a knife, very similar to the ones you can buy in Northern Canada, made by the Inuit people. That's a spatula. I'll come back to the reason it's a heart shape in a moment. A spoon with holes in it, some forks and some ladles, and the box on the right carries a flint. Many of the sailors were wounded from the Chinese, the communist shelling, and Simon also was injured. But nevertheless, despite his injuries, he kept catching mice and rats and earned his keep. And at the end of the war, he was awarded the Dickin Medal, which is the annual VC.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's me out of the tour, and it was so good. It was supposed to only be an hour, but bless our guide, he was so good, and it ended up being nearly 2 hours. So as you can see, the sun is already set. So I'm not sure how much I can show you other than just very maybe briefly the castle and maybe Victoria Street. Also, I'd planned, or maybe just toyed with the idea of having a hot drink at their cafe because it looked really nice. But unfortunately, because, well, I think the place actually closes at 4, so after the tour, it would have been too late anyway. But I'll definitely need to come back because it looked really interesting. And that's me back home. So I just wanted to finish the video with a few brief thoughts on my first visit to Gladston Land. First of all, I am so pleasantly surprised by the look of their cafe and the size of it, and thoroughly disappointed that I didn't go a little bit earlier so that I could actually sit in and have a cuppa, or that they opened maybe a little bit later and I could have gone after the tour. But I will definitely be back, and when I do go back, I'll be sure to film the experience and let you know how it goes. Because if this is a nice cafe, I always kind of struggle when I'm in that sort of Royal Mile area to find a nice cafe to sit in and have a cuppa, because yeah, I've just never really found a favourite. In every other neighbourhood in Edinburgh, I have lots of favourites. So I think the only other one that I've been to and really liked, and they used to have a branch in Leith, and I actually showed it in this video too, is called the Hideout Cafe, which is just off Victoria Street. So yeah, anyway, once the tour began, it was so in-depth, and George was so sort of passionate and excited to tell us about all of the history of the building and the stories and all the little details. I wish I could have somehow recorded all of the tour to share with you, because yeah, he told us a lot more about the painted ceilings, and yeah, it was just so fascinating, and I was in such a great group, and we had the whole place to ourselves, because I have been on many other guided tours where the building is still open for guests to wander around, and maybe that is the case, maybe there just wasn't anyone there today, but it was so nice to have the whole place pretty much to yourself. And I would also love to revisit it, because you don't have to be part of the tour. The tour is only once a day, I think at 3 p.m. And the Gladston Land in general is open from 10 in the morning till maybe 3 or 4. So I would love to actually go back and just kind of browse around myself, have a look at things, because by the end of the tour it was really dark. I think you could tell in the video, so I think it'd be really nice to go back in the daytime and have a look at things properly. I thoroughly really enjoyed myself and can't believe I put it off for so long, and I'm so glad to have finally done it. Anyway, I think that's all. I am hoping to do more of the series of just sort of a morning in this neighbourhood or an afternoon in this neighbourhood, a substitute for my failed neighbourhood guide series. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much if you made it this far. It means the world. If you did like the video, apparently the like button really helps. So if you don't mind liking and commenting, would love to have a little chat with you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.